Hello everyone, I am Exodia, and today we're making a new tutorial in the Roblox Advanced Scripting Series. No, I'm not dead, and no, I've not forgotten about the channel. I just haven't recently really gotten around getting a video out there, so that's on me. I will try to get better with that in the next coming weeks, but today we're doing a tutorial on Context Action Service. Now, what Context Action Service is like user input service. We can bind actions in a more like professional manner, I'd like to say. Now, user input service was a good method of binding actions, and that is why I made a tutorial on it after all. However, Context Action Service is a better, more proper way to do it in your game, because rather than detecting it whenever that key is inputted, no matter what you're doing, you could specifically bind and unbind that action whenever you'd like it to be used. So it could allow for more versatility as well as be easier to work with than user input service. Now, the reason I did user input service first was because Context Action Service has some stuff that might seem a bit overwhelming, whereas user input service had some functions that could be seen as easier to break down, in my opinion. Context Action Service, though, is a lot better to use, in my opinion, and we will be going over an example which is also used on the API on Roblox's developer website. So to get started, what we will do is go into our starter pack, insert a tool, and we don't really have to give this a name. We could just say, we just take off requires handle. That way that we could just load in and we don't need to make a handle of any sort. So Context Action Service can only be used on the client. So we'll make a local script inside of this tool. I then call this, we'll just call this Context Action Service tutorial underscore client. And then so what we need to do is we need to make a variable for Context Action Service, like so. And how we do this is we need to make a variable for our action, and this has to be a string. You don't need to always make a variable. You can just like put the string in when we need it. However, it just makes it easier having the variable there. So we'll just we'll just call it local action equals, and then a string action. Has to be a string, so it has to be surrounded by those quotes. So what we'll do is get our tool as well. So tool script.parent. And then now here's where we get down and dirty with it with Context Action Service. We'll make a new local function and we will call it handle action. And the parameters that we need for this are action name, input state, and then we need input object. And so what we have to do is make an if statement to check that our action name meets what we title our action, as well as if the input state is the input beginning. So how we can do that is like so. We can do if action name equals, and we'll do just action, and input state equals enum.user input state dot begin. Then we can print action performed, or in fact, if we wanted, here's where if you had your function, for local function action, here is where you'd call that function to do whatever you want. I wouldn't recommend putting it all in this if statement, and rather, if you could put it inside a function, then call that function from the if statement. I prefer to do that. However, you can do it however you see fit. Actually, yeah, we'll call action, and then in our function we will print pressed down the, and you know what? We will bind this to the E key when we make it. And so the reason that we're saying binding it to the E key is because this is where we bind our action. So when we equip the tool, we can do this. So tool.equipped :connect function. And then this is how we bind our action. We do ContextActionService :bind action. And then what we do here is our first parameter of this function has to be our action's name. So in this case, and actually I'm going to call this perform action just so we don't have two things titled the same. So we need to pass our action variable here. This is why I wanted to make a variable for it, because it could be easier when we need to, get it, check if our action name is equal to the action, and then also pass the action as a parameter here. And then we also need to pass that handle action function without parentheses, because when it's passed as a parameter, those parentheses are not needed. And then we'll pass true and enum.keycode, and this is where we want to pass the specific key that we're using. In this case, I'm going to do enum.keycode.e to get the E key on my keyboard. And then we can unbind it. So if we only want this action, that's the beauty of Context Action Service over User Input Service. We can define when we want this action to be bound, and we can define when you should be able to use it. Whereas with Context Action Service, it can with User Input Service, it can cause some bugs in your game because there isn't really a way to unbind them or bind them specifically when you need them to. So yeah, we'll do tool.unequipped :connect function. And then we'll do ContextActionService :unbind action, and then we could just unbind our action name. As you can see, the parameters, it's just the action name passed. So in this case, we'll just pass action. If you want to see the parameters here as well, it would be our string action name, our function to bind, which is our handle action function, and then we are creating a touch button, which is why we pass that as true, and then the tuple input types. So those are the parameters that are needed for here, for our binding of the action. And then unbinding action, you just need to pass the action you want to unbind. And then, so long as the tool is equipped, you'll be able to perform your action with the E key. Otherwise, you will not be able to do so when you unequip it. So if we want to test this in our place, now I'm pressing E right now, and as you can see, nothing's going on down here. However, once I equip the tool, I'll then press E. We'll get our function will print down that we press the E key. And it'll only register when we have the tool out. See, I'm pressing E again after unequipping it. And yeah, this is how you use this is actually how you use Context Action Service to bind your actions. It's a lot simpler than using User Input Service, I'd say, as well as it's a lot better to use. I know I made the tutorial on User Input Service because I wanted to give that introduction to binding actions. And really, I probably could have done this first, to be honest, but I won't lie, at the time I was pretty new to Context Action Service and kind of forgot it was there. So I just need to give myself a little refresher before doing a tutorial on it. So that's my apologies, but we have the tutorial now. So here's how you can bind your actions in a more proper way. This is, I guarantee you, 100%, all the new popular games that have actions bound to keys are using Context Action Service. So yeah, here's a tutorial on how you can use it. Pretty simple and straightforward. So yeah, we'll probably have part 3 of the placement system tutorial series coming. In that, I will be resetting all the User Input Service stuff, and I'll be setting it to Context Action Service in the video, as well as I will be making it to where you can put your objects that you want to place on specific ground. So that's the video. If you thought it was helpful or entertaining, feel free to like and subscribe. I post videos. I at least try to post one video a week if possible. Usually tutorials. However, I do have something planned for June. You're going to have to stay tuned for that. I'm actually really excited for it. I'm going to be making a video marking my 2 years of game development on Roblox, and 2 years of game development in general, actually. And I might be branching out the channel in the future. But anyways, without further ado, that's it for the video. So yeah, see ya.